Our group did early childhood development for our presentation. The first stage we looked at is biosocial development. The first aspect we looked at is body changes. The body and brain both mature in size and function during this period. Preschool children are often malnourished even if they have a good amount of food. Children are often malnourished because they aren't getting enough adequate amount of the nutrients they need for development. Most adults encourage their children to eat, which leads them to obesity and also malnourished. By age 2, a children's brain is 75% of what it will weigh when they are adults. By age 6, their brain will weigh 90%. Growth of prefrontal cortex advances significantly between ages 2 and 4 in forms of sleeping, emotion, and temper. Early childhood is an important time where gross motor skills improve. 2-year-olds are clumsy and fall down while 5-year-olds perform coordinated moves. Fine motor skills are harder for children in early childhood to master. The last aspect we looked at for biosocial development is injuries and abuse. In the US, 4 times as many 1 to 4-year-olds die of accidents than of cancer. In accidents, 2 to 6-year-olds are seriously hurt than 6 to 10-year-olds. Levels of prevention. Primary prevention are actions that prevent unwanted events of circumstances. Secondary prevention are actions that divert harm in a high-risk event. Tertiary prevention is actions such as medical treatment. Child maltreatment is intentional harm to or avoidable endangerment of anyone under 18 years of age. Two aspects of child maltreatment is child abuse and child neglect. Child abuse is deliberate action that is harmful to a child's physical, emotional, and sexual well-being. Child neglect is failure to meet a child's physical, educational, or emotional needs. Neglect is worse than abuse. It is the most common and more frequently fatal form of child maltreatment. 92% of the time, the children perpetrators are both of the child's parents, more often the mother than the father.
First, we start off with Piaget's stage of development, which is pre-operational stage. This includes language and imagination. At this stage, children do not have a grasp of logical thinking. Some obstacles to logic are centration, which is when young children focus on one idea, excluding all others. Another one is egocentrism, when children think about the world from their own personal perspective only. Also, they focus on appearance, which means they ignore all attributes that are not apparent. Another obstacle is static reasoning. Static reasoning is when young children think that nothing changes. Lastly, another obstacle is irreversibility. This is where children think that nothing can be undone. Vygotsky emphasizes that early cognition is shaped by other people's thoughts and wishes. Children are curious and observant, and they ask questions about everything going on around them. Children learn through guided participation. The zone of proximal development is Vygotski's term for skills that a person can exercise only with assistance and not independently. Scaffolding is temporary support from the children's mentors that is tailored to a learner's needs and abilities. Learning skills depend highly on the mentor's ability to provide scaffolding to children. Vygotsky also believed that language was pivotal to guide children. Private speech is the internal dialogue that occurs when people talk to themselves and is evident in young children when they talk aloud to review, decide, and explain events to themselves. Social mediation, which is human interaction that expands and advances understanding, often through words that one person uses to explain something to another. Theory of mind. Theory of mind is ideas about what other people might be thinking. It begins in children at about age 4. Children at 2 start off with having no understanding that other people think differently than they do, but at age 6, children have a pretty good theory of mind. In this picture, the child doesn't yet have a good theory of mind because he doesn't understand that even though he knows what he is playing with, that his dad does not know what it is because he is not there to see it. The next aspect we looked at was language learning. Brain maturation, myelination, scaffolding, and social interaction make early childhood ideal for language learning. Young children have motivation and the ability to sort words and sounds into meaning. Language learning equals rapidly and easily mastering vocabulary, grammar, and pronunciation. Young children are like language sponges, they soak up every verbal drop they hear. Fast mapping is the way that children rapidly learn new words by placing them in mental categories according to their perceived meaning. Children usually apply grammar rules once they learn them. Over-regularization is when children use grammar rules that are not needed. An example of this is adding an extra letter to foots, tooths, mouses when not needed. The last aspect for cognitive development is early childhood schooling. Young children learn in a variety of settings. Some of the programs aimed at early childhood schooling are child-centered, teacher-directed, and intervention. Child-centered programs stress each child's development and growth. Teachers believe that children should follow their own interests rather than adult directions. This allows for exploration and encourages artistic expression. Montessori schools emphasize careful work and tasks that each young child can do. They allow children to seek out learning tasks instead of sitting there listening to the teacher instruct to all of them. Teacher-directed programs, on the other hand, stress academics and is often one adult teaching to the entire group. The goal here is to make children ready to learn when they enter elementary school. Basic skills are stressed in these types of programs. Intervention programs were developed for children from low SES families. Head Start is a federally funded early childhood intervention program for low-income children of preschool age. They have changed from when they first started and begin as childhood-centered but have become more teacher-directed. The last stage of development we looked at is psychosocial development. Psychosocial development starts with emotional development. Emotional regulation equals the ability to control expressions of emotions. Self-concept begins in early childhood, and it is a person's understanding of who they are as a person. Erik Erikson's third stage of development is initiative versus guilt. This usually occurs at ages 3 to 6. Children at this stage undertake new activities and skills and then feel guilty when they do not succeed at them. Also included in emotional development is motivation. Intrinsic motivation is the drive or reason to pursue a goal that comes from within a person. Extrinsic motivation, however, is the drive or reason to pursue a goal that arises from the need to have one's achievements rewarded from the outside.
Play is the most productive activity that children undertake. Young children play best with peers. Two types of play is pretend play, when a child is alone, and social play that occurs with playmates. Active play includes rough and tumble play, which is wrestling, chasing, or hitting but no intent of harm. Aggression includes four types that are evident in early childhood. Instrumental aggression, common in 2-year-olds. Reactive aggression is when a child reacts when hurt, whether or not it is deliberate. Relationship aggression destroys self-esteem and disrupts social networks, gets more common as children mature. Bully aggression is unprovoked, repeated physical or verbal attack.
Next, we looked at challenges for caregivers. There are 4 different types of parenting styles. The first is authoritarian. Authoritarian parenting has little communication between the children and the parent but has strict punishment for misconduct and high behavioral standards. Permissive parenting includes high nurturance and communication but very little discipline or guidance. Authoritative parenting includes a style where parents set limits but listen to their children and are flexible. The last style is neglectful parenting, which is an approach where parents are indifferent towards their children and are unaware of what is going on in their lives. These parents don't provide support or discipline for their children.
Children don't always do what adults think they should do. Physical punishment: young children are often slapped, spanked, or beaten more often than infants or older children. Psychological control is disciplinary technique that involves threatening to withdraw love and support.
Another challenge for caregivers is to provide children with a well understanding between sex and gender. Sex differences are the biological difference between males and females, while gender differences are differences in the roles and behaviors of males and females that are prescribed in our culture. In early childhood, some children identify as being transgender, wanting to be a gender that is not their biological sex. This provides parents or caregivers with a challenge that was not present in the past. The last thing we looked at was healthcare applications. We looked at early childhood and disability. Early childhood is a crucial time because early development can influence the outcomes across a person's lifetime. It is essential to provide early intervention in order for children to fully develop and reach their maximum potential. Some obstacles for children with disabilities is that children are often overlooked in mainstream programs and programs to ensure development. They also don't receive special support to meet their needs and rights. If children with disabilities and their families are not provided with adequate early intervention and support, their difficulties can become more severe, which can lead to lifetime consequences, which include increased poverty and exclusion.